Hello and welcome to Prophetic Voices, Preaching and Teaching Beloved Community, a podcast from the Episcopal Church's Office of Reconciliation, Justice, and Creation Care, where we explore the season and the lectionary through the lens of social justice. I'm your host, Reverend Shaniqua, Staff Officer for Racial Reconciliation, and I'm so glad you could join us. In this episode of Prophetic Voices, we'll be discussing the Monday-Thursday lectionary. Our lovely guests this week are the Reverend Jazzy Bostock, who is a kanaka maoli woman serving St. John the Baptist and Maluhia Lutheran Church in Waianae, Hawaii. She and her wife have a small homestead consisting of raised garden beds, a flock of hens, a hive of bees, a dog, and a cat. They are foster parents currently caring for a 4-year-old boy who brings delight and wonder to their lives and are currently awaiting the arrival of another bundle of joy. And last but not least, the Very Reverend Lydia Bucklin, who is President and Dean of Episcopal Divinity School and canon theologian in the Diocese of Northern Michigan. She has consulted widely on church redevelopment and collaborative ministry. Her leadership centers on justice-oriented theology, community engagement, and indigenous reconciliation, emphasizing the importance of honoring individual gifts in ministry. Welcome, friends. Thank you so much for being willing to be guests. I'm very excited to have you both here. What do we need to keep in mind this Holy Week or this Lent?
I think Holy Week feels a little overwhelming this year. To say it simply. Usually for me, Holy Week is a time to set aside and to really think about these. It feels heavier than what's going on in everyday life, and so it seems like a time to go into a zone of these big issues around quiet and death and resurrection and the passion and that side of Christianity that we take so seriously during that week. And for so many reasons right now, that just seems to be engulfing the whole world around us, that I feel like we're in the middle of Holy Week right now, though while we're recording this, we're actually not. And so by the time folks are getting ready and listening to Holy Week, I'm not sure. I'd be curious to hear from you, Jazzy, what makes this Holy Week different for you than past Holy Weeks? Because it feels different for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the difference is really personal. I'm pregnant, and Holy Week is my last kind of push before my baby comes into the world, hopefully. And so when you asked about Holy Week, I was like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do before then. So that was the first kind of overwhelmed thought. And then I thought, oh my gosh, that's I'll be 9 months pregnant. So that feels very different than other Holy Weeks, as I have never been pregnant of any kind in other Holy Weeks. Yeah, I was also thinking about how here in Hawaii, we don't have much of a seasonal shift, and how different Holy Week felt when I spent it on the continent. The kind of darkness of winter turning into spring, the wishing that it was actually spring when it's not yet. I was always really sorely disappointed that Easter was not actually warm and sunny, as I had been led to believe it would be, with all the chicks and bunnies and everything, and there was actually still ice on the ground a lot of the time when I was in Connecticut. And how different that is here too, that we're in this like you said, kind of waiting time, a time to step back and reflect. And yet here in Hawaii, our seasonal shift, there's nothing in our outside environment telling us that. In the same way, our daylight hours don't change very much. We don't do daylight savings. Our temperature doesn't change very much. And I was just thinking about the kind of intentionality around Holy Week when you don't have it coming from external factors. Sort of what are the internal shifts that we choose to undertake because of our faith journeys and in relation to our spirits, not just sort of in response to the physical world around us.
I think just in our society right now, sometimes it feels like a big dumpster fire, and what is it that we want to focus on. And sometimes I've preached where I'm like, this is how much our society right now is like how it was a long time ago, and we might not think about it that way. But I wonder if it's just like drawing those parallels, maybe.
Oh, I find the scriptures for sure speak very differently to me right now than when the world feels a bit more calm and steady. Particularly, and these aren't in our lessons that we're going to be discussing, but like all the stuff around Revelations and the end of day, the apocalyptic stuff, that certainly I think, oh, okay, I see why the writers were so focused on like this huge like sense of the coming of like something new, which really is kind of, Holy Week leading into Easter, this time of really hoping that something new will come after death. And I almost I feel sad to say this, especially as a Christian, especially as a priest, but I'm almost worried about my lack of hope right now in the given time. I mean, I feel hopeful. I do feel that love always wins, but it feels like a really long, extended process. Whereas before, like Holy Week was like that, like week was just long enough, and it was like we go through the Passion and we go through this and we do this, and then like, yay, Jesus is risen, it's hope. And I'm a little worried about like that Easter morning. It'll still be like, yay, Jesus is risen, but like, will it feel like Jesus is risen? Will it feel like we've really defeated death on, April 20, whatever day Easter is, in April of 2025? Will we really have defeated like the powers of evil, and feel that love wins? I don't know. Today, I don't feel that.
I'm also thinking about the Triduum. Like, do your churches follow all three things? I know mine, they don't. Like, they're like, come on Monday, Thursday, we don't care about Good Friday, and come on Easter Sunday, we don't care about Easter Vigil. And I'm just like, what? Like, where are you guys with the Triduum, and how do you sort of explain it to your people?
Yeah, I serve two churches. So I have one that does Maundy Thursday and then Easter Sunday. And I have the other does Good Friday and then Easter Sunday. And I'm constantly like, you can come to the other church, like to have the 3-day experience. And they're like, yeah, Pastor Jazzy. Like, no, nobody comes. So you choose one. If you go to St. John's, you're going to be at a Maundy Thursday service. And if you go to Maluhia, you're going to be at a Good Friday service. I think I've always felt that the 3 days really like need each other. I really need all 3 days. At first, I had one of my congregations was like, well, we don't need to do it because not that many people come. And I was like, that's actually like a hill that I'll die on. I don't need to have service on Christmas Day, but I like really need to have services on Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, even if no one else is attending except me. My spirit needs that journey, both to kind of wrap up Lent, but also because any one of the days without each other isn't like, it doesn't feel complete. There's something about the threeness and the like journey of this, like, yeah, Jesus intimately with his friends and sharing this meal, and then this like very public, brutal walk to crucifixion, the like waiting of Saturday, and then the joyful sort of publicity of Easter Sunday. That just, I don't know, that journey, even when I don't want to take it in Holy Weeks, that I feel really resentful of having to be at church so much, or really like I don't go into the service feeling very present. Every single time there's something in that liturgy that holds me and soothes me and speaks to me. And so in that regard, Lydia, I'm also not feeling particularly hopeful about the world, and it makes me so grateful to have a liturgical tradition where there's so much of the service that like is for a foregone conclusion. Like, we don't have to come up with it, and the sameness of it. I'm finding a lot of comfort in the sameness of things. When there's so much that's like not the same and unstable, and like so many really, really bananas policies that are coming down, that I have no control over, right? Or say in, and blink twice and there's like the next bananas thing that's going on. And So the sameness of tradition is like giving me a kind of place to put my feet that is helpful.
That's so good. I totally agree with you that we don't have to actually, we don't have to guarantee that that Christ will rise, that there is resurrection, that there's an Easter Sunday, because it just is, and we know that it is, and it's pretty much written there for us in our hearts and in our stories and in the stories of our ancestors. And if that is all we have to like hang our hat on, then that's enough. And I to answer your question, Shaniqua, about the Triduum, I feel like I grew up more focused on like Good Friday and Easter Vigil, Easter Sunday, and not so much Maundy Thursday. Like it wasn't until I was an adult, and I don't know if it's just because I didn't understand it when I was younger, or if the churches I was going to didn't follow it. But Maundy Thursday has become my absolute favorite service of the whole year. And now that's the one that I'm like, please don't, let's not skip it. Even though like the tradition of folks up here in Northern Michigan is that they will not wash their feet. They will only wash their hands, which I know makes me sad because I'm like, take off your socks. They are so opposed to like washing feet. Maybe there's one congregation up here that does, but like any of them that I've been to are, but still, the story itself, the tradition, the rituals of Maundy Thursday is like so precious to me, and there's something about it that I just really, really cherish. I think it's also around. It always tends to be around the time of the anniversary of my mom's death, um, and the story of Maundy Thursday, of that being a last meal and a last like very intimate time with someone, with their friends before they die, takes me to that place of those last moments I've had with loved ones in my own life. um, and I always think about what it was like for those disciples, like the next day when they came back in, and like the dirty dishes were still there and the wet towels were kind of hanging in the half-eaten bread, and like like eventually they had to return to the room and like clean up after. And then to remember like that time together, kind of paused in time, and their friend is no longer with them, like that reminds me of like having to go through like my dad's closet after he died, and like what do we do with his clothes, like 'cause, like Jesus' stuff is probably like still there, like that. Just the human experience of that, to me, makes it more real personally than even like the passion story in some ways, because the passion story is like everybody knows the passion story. It's like told, we know he walks, like it's awful, it's violent, it's like kind of shocking in some ways, but like the intimacy of like the kind of that last like being together just always gets me. It's so sweet.
I've never thought about that, the like cleanup that happened afterwards. And that just like strikes such a chord, because I think I often feel like the Triduum should be like these 3 days set apart, like time away from time. But of course, like they are, but they're not. They are for like 15 minutes each day, right? Or like that like one moment in the service that you're like this, like, were you there when they crucified my Lord, is like completely transcendent. But then you're like right back to it, right? Like you're right back in your own life, in your own body, in your own mess, like having to do your own dishes and laundry and whatever else. Make sure you like stuffed the Easter eggs for the Easter hunt on Sunday.
Right.
And that, yeah, that reminder of like that's how the disciples lived too. Like they also weren't just in this like super, super holy time that was untouched. They were like in and out of that kind of like kairos sacred time, and like chronos, like we gotta like get done time. Yeah, I've never thought of that, the last meal in particular being like cleaned up and revisited. And that just makes me think really differently, particularly about the story of when Jesus first reappears and they're all in the upper room. Like, I wonder if that's when they're doing cleanup. Like, we're not told that, but I wonder if that's when they're like sweeping up the crumbs and like trying to bring some order back to chaos. Because also, that's what I do when I feel really overwhelmed. I'm like often scrubbing my kitchen sink. when
Mhm.
there's that kind of like you can't process it, it's like too much.
And, like, smelling his clothes, right? Like, smelling the cloth, like, it still smells
Yeah.
like him. Like, he was just right here, and then, like, to then have him, like, appear again, like, wait a second, like, that we forget, like, that closeness of time, of, like, oh, it was just right then that they were together, and then this happens, and then he's no longer with, like, they lost their friend.
Mhm.
For me, I think what I hold on to when there's those moments is like in our Lakota culture, we have like prescribed things we do when someone dies, and you kind of know if you're the close family member, these are what you do, and if you're sort of an extended family, this is what you do, and if you're a friend, this is what you do, and so it kind of tells you what to do in those moments when you don't know, like it tells you how to act. And then I was thinking, one of the things I think we can hold on to with our own culture and faith is like we know when someone dies. This is kind of like the process that we go through. Like we know we're going to plan the funeral and we know what the liturgy is going to be like. And those are these things that you can hold on to when it feels like your world is falling apart.
Mhm.
Let's talk about Exodus. I don't know. Sometimes I've heard people preach on Exodus and I've heard people preach on John. Exodus is so, I feel like it's so very detailed. The God's like, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do this and you do it this way and don't do it this way, and very micromanagey in this case. What do you think's up with all that specificity? Like, why are we eating in a rush and why do we have to eat it all? But then God's like, and if you don't eat it all, this is how you're gonna take care of it. God knows that we're not always good at following directions, I think.
I mean, maybe it goes back to like that idea of the ritual of like, let me make this so clear for you that you don't actually have to think about it, because it's going to be in doing it consistently and all of us doing it consistently that we can find meaning through the symbolism of it. Like the clearer, I like, for instance, I in cooking, and I'm a recipe person. My husband is like we'll just figure this out. And I'm like, the recipe though said that you're supposed to do that. I think there's probably a reason that like it was supposed to be garlic salt and not garlic powder, and it's gonna like change. And he's like, what? Like whatever, just add like what the thing. But I'm more like, if we get like one of those kits in the mail or something, I'm gonna like read every single little direction, because that's how I trust like that's gonna come out the way it's supposed to. And there's some like guarantee in that like if it doesn't come out the way it's supposed to, it's not my fault because I didn't mess it up. I followed exactly what I was supposed to do. Um, so I wonder if there is some piece around like the gift of that is for for the instructions to be so clear. You can't get obsessed over you can't get caught up being obsessed over all of the details and figuring it all out, and comparing with your neighbor, and well, I did it this way, well, I did it this way. Like, it's just, this is just the way we're going to do this for this one big thing that's so important that we'll do it together and we'll do it this way. And I mean, even like you can like smell the lamb cooking from the passage. Like, you could get in this moment of like imagining these families like gathering the food, and yeah, the urgency of it, and the marking the house for the safety. Like, there's something really beautiful about um everyone having a similar experience across households, like regardless of the difference otherwise that they might have in each household, regardless of like what the dynamics are, who's bickering with who, like we're all going to do this together this night.
I also just think of like how overwhelming it must have been. This is like the last plague in Egypt. They've like lived through some like really like all, the locusts are coming and eating everything, the Nile's turning to blood. Everyone must just be like, what in the world is going on? And so this kind of God micromanaging makes me think of like when I get really decision overwhelmed, right? Like decision fatigued.
Mm.
And Bree, my wife, will just be like, okay, come home. We're having dinner. I've got it. I'm calling pizza. This is like, you need someone to family plan. Like, this is the emergency contingency. Like, and she'll tell me,
Yes.
like, go take a shower, take off your clothes, get in the shower. And I'm like, what?
Yes.
Okay. Like, right? I'm like, you get to a point where you're just like, you can't really like or I do, like I can't really think even in like a sensible way, and she'll be like, this is
Mhm.
a glass of water, drink the whole thing, like just be right in front of
Mhm.
me and go like, this is the next step to help you.
Yeah.
Because and that's just when I'm like emotionally kind of flooded, or I've had a really, hard week or whatever, hard day, and I really need someone else to like take the reins. And the people of Israel, like they've had a hard time. They've been, I mean, that's like
Mm-hmm.
to say it mildly. They've had like the worst week ever, Their whole physical environment is being changed. Like they're in this like journey with God that they're supposed to just be trusting, but they're just like every day is a new kind of hell. Like what is happening? And is this really a God we can trust to take care of us? Because like some of this is not really taking care of us. And this just seems so parental to me that God is like,
Yeah.
this is exactly how to do it. Like you make no decisions, make zero decisions about how you're going to do it. I'm giving you all of the exact instructions. And I just think of like when someone else finally sort of wrenches the control from my tight little hands, and what a relief it can be,
Mm.
and what a like
Mm.
caretaking and caregiving it can be to have, yeah, Bree say, or my mom, or like whoever, like someone else just be like, stop, I'm in charge. Like
Mhm.
it's not on you. And I see it, in parenting, like a young child too. Theo is 4 years old. He thinks he would love to be in charge of everybody. And yet, particularly when he's like tired, needs a nap, whatever, like it's really good, right? It's part of a good parental relationship to be like, stop, have your applesauce, go to the bathroom, get in your bed. Like that's what we're doing next. We're not doing like stay up and get more and more dysregulated and overwhelmed and overstimulated and like watch TV until 3 a.m. Like we're going, it's bedtime. And
Yeah.
I see God doing that same kind of thing here where he's like, this is like, you're feeling out of control. You're probably overstimulated. There's been a lot
Mhm.
happening. There's been a lot of these, signs of my presence. Here's what you have to do next. That just put one foot in front of the other. And these are the
Mhm.
sort of the things that you can focus on that are physical and tangible, like the smell of meat, like a meal, right? Like these things that we can sort of put our hands on are like so grounding in times of upheaval and times of chaos.
And everybody gets a lamb. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
does. It's, talk about equality and everyone being
Mm.
fed. And it's not if there isn't enough lamb, share with your neighbor. It's if your household's too small for a whole lamb, share that with your neighbor. Like it's talk about like it's the scarcity flipped upside down to say you might have more than you need, and in which case you should share. Um, because there's more than enough and everybody will be fed this evening.
I've been thinking about like what are the metaphorical doors and lintels, or like whose blood are we placing there, and um, what came up for me, or what I was thinking about, was like how now we're sort of getting guidance about ICE and coming into our churches, and how we actually are putting signs up on our doors and lintels about who can come and who can't, and how this is a safe place, and how we protect
Mm,
the people who come in, right? Like we're actually making it a real sanctuary. I mean, not that it isn't, but you know what I mean, like at least a
hmm.
legal one.
Yeah, what are those signs and what signs can we trust of what it
Hmm.
means to be a place of worship and to be a place where people can bring their full selves and ask for prayer and ask for help? I think that's something a lot of people are wondering right now as they're seeking places to worship or places to ask for something that's missing in their lives, whether it's even food or, safety.
I really like, Jesse, what you said. It made me think. I struggle with this passage about like, because it feels like God is so very like, rah, this is how you're gonna do, and like when you're like, I have had that experience where you're like so stressed out, and somebody just needs to be like, do this and do this and do this, and that like, I can totally see this now as a very loving thing rather than this
Mm.
very like paternalistic sort of commandy type of thing.
Mm.
What parallels do you see between this story and today?
I mean, this is very surface level, but like this is how you shall eat it. Your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, your staff in your hand. You shall eat it hurriedly. I'm like, gosh, that's how it feels like I'm going through life right now. My loins girded, my staff in my hand, my sandals on my feet. Like, what's coming next? Who needs attention? Like, this kind of hurriedness and like unsettledness. This is not like some beautiful family meal of like breaking bread and delighting in one another's company, right? This is the Wednesday night when like everybody needs dinner and there's like nothing that's defrosted and you gotta like pull it together because we're all like about to lose it with each other. This is like that vibe to me. Like, and also we like have somewhere else to go. Like we gotta like hurry it up. Yeah, and that just emotionally feels like it hits something right on the head of like how I've been feeling, and I'm sort of desperate for the relaxed nature of like a shared good meal with good friends. And the political climate feels like it is moving so quickly, I can hardly keep up. With I don't read the news very much, but from what I see, it just feels like I'm swinging from one bonkers situation to another bonkers situation, and I can't kind of figure out what to focus on or how to make a significant impact. And then I get so overwhelmed and sort of depressed that I don't want to try anymore. And so that like hurried and harried sort of feeling of like, gotta hurry up, gotta get to the next thing, but like you're not even sure why. Like, what are they hurried up to do? Feels very like personally resonant.
That speaks so much to me, to what I even I'm thinking back to when I, have read a lot of books on grief and sitting with others going through grief and trauma response. And I'm really also like struck by this line of like, this shall be a day of remembrance, and you shall celebrate it as a festival throughout your generations. You will observe it as a perpetual ordinance. Like this, like order to celebrate it and to honor it. And one of the things that like grief experts will say is like these days of loss or days of like birthdays or anniversaries of loved ones are like the most important thing to do is to acknowledge it. And like the most like, I don't know if for me, like there have been a lot of times where I want to ignore it because it hurts. Like it's too, I'm just going to go about daily life. It doesn't make a difference anyway. They're gone anyway. There's nothing I can do. I've got enough stuff going on. But this like insistence that we observe, that we stop, like not like put your whole life on hold, right? Like, cause you've got to still do it quickly because there's other stuff to do. But on this night we have to observe it. We have to take the time, and it has to be every year, that we don't forget this, that we don't forget that there were rough times and that we survived and that we came out and that we were spared because we were there for each other and we cared for each other and we followed some ritual and order that made sense. And that's what I think about, like all these laws, from the Hebrew scriptures, are like, it's not the laws themselves, like the specificity of each of the laws. It's like the fact that there was some law and order that was like guiding the people as a whole into a way of being and holding community together. Like that's what feels most important to me. And so this is again one of those like kind of laws and orders of like just trust me, like just do this. And which then makes me think of like, Jesus saying, do this in remembrance of me. Like whenever you eat it, just remember, like that sake of the remembering of these big moments, and how crucial that is really to our faith and to what it is to mark this time as community. Because that's the other thing, is like we're not doing any of this on our own. We're doing it in community with one another, and there aren't many things today that we do together as community.
I think that's so key. I really like what you said about the remembering, Lydia, that like that makes it sort of shifted for me too. I was thinking about like, I think it's important in these times where we feel like we don't have a lot of hope, that it's like, yes, these bad things did happen and we survived. And I know when I've had times like that, my grandma would be like, this is the crap that happened to our ancestors, and look at, you're here and we're here, and that's why it's important that we pass X, Y, and Z on, and that's why I'm telling you X, Y, and Z story, some of which I forgot. But like, you know, like, or sometimes I'll remember a gist of the story, but don't remember all the little details.
Right.
I remember one time she was like, we have these different words for God, and there's this one that means grandfather, it's this one that means like the great spirit or the mystery. And then she's like, then there's this one that's so sacred, we hardly ever use it. And she told me, and it was so sacred, I don't remember what it is. And so, like, I've never remembered, and I really wished I paid attention. But at the same time, we hear those things, and it's so important that we can remember those times that we did survive, or that we are survivors, and so that helps us, I think, gives us energy, right, to get through it.
It also makes me think of how memory changes. Like, they're going through this time of like trauma, like raw, immediate trauma, right? They're like in the trenches. And God is like, you shall celebrate this day. I bet they're like, no, we effing won't. Like, what would we celebrate about this time? It's awful. Like, it is really scary. We like don't know what's going to happen, right? And so like the difference between being in something to like being 1 year out, being 5 years out, being 10 years out, like the difference of how things sit in our body, like how our memory works, like what can become celebratory even when it's not at the time. Like, you know, there were times at my grandparents' funerals and stuff when we would laugh about something that in life drove us absolutely up the wall about that person, right? Like their most annoying trait that everyone was like, oh my God, you know, I'd hear how many times my mom going like, I wish my dad would stop smoking. I wish, you know, and then of course it's like what we all remember about him was that he always had a pack of cigarettes in his front pocket, and he smoked like a chimney. That was just like who he was. And I think there's something really beautiful and sacred about the way that we sort of come back to revisit things, right? That we like that kind of spiraling of time, that we're slightly different, that the memory is slightly different, it sits in a different way, but like these things are not static. And so every time this community did this ritual, like the first year out of Egypt, that ritual would have felt so different than when they had done it just a year ago and they were like in the trenches. You know, and then when it was like their children's turn or their grandchildren's turn and they hadn't had that raw trauma, right? Like trauma is so held and remembered and stored, and also hopefully with God's help, like transformed from, you know, the event in our own lives, and especially when we're talking about generational stuff and what we pass on to our kids, that hopefully we pass on something that's much less grief filled and much more celebratory, because we've done that work to sort of understand things differently, to come to it from a different place, to like sit and wrestle with it in our own experiences. And yeah, just the revisiting of it, but having it be like same but different every time. Yeah, I think that's makes me just hopeful that the political moment we're in now like won't last, right? Like it will, and then it won't. and then how do we remember it? What am I going to be proud of for doing in 4 years or in 8 years or in 10 years? And what am I going to regret having not done or said?
That'll preach. I think there's a lot of what will I regret not doing, right? Like I think a lot of us at different times, maybe things have happened and we kind of think, oh, somebody should have said something. Somebody should have, I guess you guys can't see it, but I'm shaking my finger at myself. Somebody should have said something. Somebody should. Let's talk about John. I know a lot of our churches do foot washing or hand washing. Metaphorically, whose feet as the church should we be washing?
I mean, whose feet shouldn't we be washing, I guess, is more of the question I have. To even welcome people into the church to have their feet in front of us these days feels like a blessing in terms of church feeling like a safe space that people can even enter into and trust us enough to wash their feet. I mean, I think even the act of like pe- people sitting before us for us to kneel in front of them is a huge um, act of trust that is probably pretty rare in a lot of our congregations these days, just in general, because like feet are weird, right? Like people aren't
Mm-hmm.
used to that. But even like take away like feet and just say like people comfortable sitting in the first pew of a church when you're having Eucharist. I mean, these relationships these days within our congregations for a lot of our church are strained. It's our churches have become a lot smaller, and then but also, and I will say, the intimacy that does exist in our small churches is so beautiful and sacred. And so I don't want to diminish that. And I really don't want to come from a scarcity model at all. So I take back everything I just said. I do think that um, the small is beautiful and sacred and is enough, right? Like, and the things that are keeping people away from church and church communities is the place I think we need to be doing our work to invite others into the beauty and the intimacy that does exist in our congregations.
Yeah, I was thinking of how meaningful it's been for me to do foot washing, like particularly to get to wash the feet of the elders in my church,
Mm,
right? The kupuna who just, oh my gosh, it like brings tears to your eyes, just the lives that they've lived and the privilege it is to
Hmm.
serve, even in like a small way.
mm,
Um, Gosh, that's what Maundy Thursday does to me. And then even our kids like to be able to wash the feet of some 10-year-old who's been like running around in the mud, right? And like their feet are like quite dirty, but they don't know yet to like be embarrassed. Like all of our
Mm-hmm.
elders always get pedicures before Maundy Thursday. Their toenails
Right.
are like
Yeah.
all done. That's how my mom used to be, and she used to like sandwich herself between kids. So it was like she only had to touch one of our feet, and like only one of her children got to touch her feet. Um, and I'm sure a lot of people do that, and like no shame, no shade. Like that's, at least you're participating in the ritual. And like there is this strange, intimate vulnerability in like allowing skin to skin touch, even
Mm-hmm.
like particularly in the post-COVID world or whatever, right? Like where we
Mm-hmm.
we have sort of grown accustomed to distance. And even in a culture like Hawaiian culture where we're like hugging and kissing each other all the time, but still like touching a foot is a weird thing. Like it's not normal. Like it's not, we don't go around touching each other's feet. Um, and so it's set apart in that way. But there's just something so that asks so much of you to serve, like to be the one doing the washing and then to allow yourself to be served and to like be seen. I almost think it's harder to have your feet washed than to
mhm,
do the washing,
Mm-hmm.
because most of us, especially in churches, would like to think of ourselves as the ones who kneel and pour out and who give to others. And sometimes receiving that gift, especially from someone who you don't know that well or who you feel like has less than you or like whatever it is, right? Like just I think receiving sometimes can ask equally much of us because it asks a kind of mutuality that we're not very used to in like bound as we are in the power structures of the world. And foot washing on Maundy Thursday doesn't care if you're a CEO, if you work at a bank, if you just walked in
mm,
off the street. Like that ritual, similar to Eucharist, like it's one of those places that like truly doesn't give a crap like where you come from or what your background is or who should be giving or should be receiving or who has or has not or whatever. And I think that kind of um, equality and mutuality is really needed and really hard. Like no
mhm.
matter where you are on the spectrum, I think it's just really, really hard.
So I'm curious about like in your local congregations, is it usually like the deacon or the priest that does all the washing, or do people take turns washing each other's?
We take turns.
Mhm.
So yeah, the way that I do it, I'll wash the first person's feet. I've tried to do it where I wash everyone's feet. I get ousted. That's not how they want to do it. I think
That's
that,
interesting.
yeah, and I think there is something to that. Like, first I have water poured and then I pour the water. Like,
Mm.
this kind of, and then some of the kids really want to get super into it and like wash everybody's feet. And, there's a lot of sensory water play with the bin, and it's like good fun. And
Such a great intergenerational service.
yeah, I think there is something about like this kind of I wash and am washed. That
Mm.
like in our service, if you're participating in the ritual, you get to do both.
With the congregation that I'm usually at, there it's a native congregation, and I think I will usually try and wash everybody's feet, but like I have the children that are with me, they want to do everything. So like, and I haven't gotten to the point where I'm trying to train them to do things correctly or properly or any of that. I just want them to have fun. So if I'm washing feet, they want to wash feet. If I'm doing asperges, they sure love to throw that holy water, like, or whatever it is, And so I will wash like most of the feet, and then they want to do a few. Sometimes they do their parents or their grandma or whatever. Yeah, I think one of the things that this calls us to is like, you both said it. I think this deep vulnerability, and I think I'm going to put air quotes in here, but like as church people, we sometimes think of ourselves, at least we, maybe not as Episcopalians, but a lot of like other denominations, like we're the best people, or we have to behave correctly, or you know what I mean. And so we should always only ever be giving other people's things. And so I think this asks us to be vulnerable and also see that we're weak. And so I think it asks us to be okay with people seeing our rough edges,
Yes.
and that we aren't perfect people, and that we aren't, like we might have misshapen toenails, or we might, you know what I mean? And that's difficult, I think, for some people to be willing to do, especially those, I'm thinking of like the one lady at church that wears the doily on her head, that has the white gloves, that brings her own prayer book. You know what I mean? Like that's hard for her to sort of be in that spot.
Ain't no one getting Botox in their feet.
Right. I think it asks us that we have to be there. And I think that's maybe a reminder for, the rest of the time, like as Christians, we're not perfect people, and we need to not be trying to perpetuate this idea. Like, I can't remember who said it, but it's like the church is a hospital for the sick, not like some place where you go when you're good. Right. Maybe that was St. John Chrysostom. I don't remember who said it, but somebody said it.
That's what I love about the Maundy Thursday service too. I mean, and sometimes too, I don't know if you've been in places where they put like a little oil, like scented oil that, smells really nice. Like the feels of like the sensory of the water and the splashing and the pouring and and then it's warm water, right? And then the towel, and someone has to bring up the towels. Like it also like involves more people that a usual service doesn't. So I think I love that piece too, is it's a bit more participatory, and because it is out of the norm, people pay attention a little bit more, like just perk up. And yeah,
On our, I can't remember who did it first, but like on some of our reservations, they will actually have like the public health nurse come and part of the service talk about diabetic foot care and the importance of diabetic foot care at this service, because so many of our communities have diabetes, and like it impacts, it's very important that they take good care of their feet. So this would be like a good time to talk about that and show the people how to do a foot check, so you could check your own feet, or maybe if they can't do it, you can teach somebody else how to do it for them.
it's a great idea.
Yeah.
It says that the devil put this idea into Judas's heart. I struggle with the Judas thing, but like where's Judas's responsibility in this? Or is it not? Or what's important to I think it gets scapegoated a lot.
Is that the part that you struggle with, that you think he gets like blamed and he shouldn't be?
Well, I guess maybe it's more just a question. Like maybe he should get blamed. I don't know. But I'm like, it says that, the devil put this thing in his heart, and sometimes it's like Jesus already knew that he was going to betray him, and which is sort of like a like testament if you believe in predestination or whatever. And so it's like, if that was the case, does that mean it's really Judas's fault that this happened? And and so I think a lot of times we think about Judas in this negative way, but like what is the responsibility in that, and where isn't it, and like how much of the responsibility is the crowd that called for Jesus's crucifixion when Pilate tried to release Jesus instead of Barabbas, or whatever. Like, where is that culpability? And I think about that a lot, maybe more in our society, just because we're so like litigious, and also we always want to just blame the one person, when the reality is it's probably that Swiss cheese model where there's multiple things that have gone wrong that can cause this bad thing to happen.
Yeah, well, and that makes me wonder, like, why doesn't it say that the devil was active in the crowd that day? Or, like, put the idea in many people's hearts, right? Like, I think
Right.
hearing so specifically, the devil did this to Judas, makes us think, like, oh, he was friends with the bad guy. But, like, actually,
Right.
most of us, I can certainly point to ideas that I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was not from God. And so that he was, like, from the devil, right? I think we don't, in Episcopal churches, I don't think we're so comfortable talking. We're really comfortable talking about God and the Spirit and all that stuff. Great. 10 out of 10 for Jesus. But like, we're not so good at talking about also the devil, right? And like also evil, and like in a very real manifested way, in as real a spot like spiritually as Jesus is. In other traditions, they're much better at like just naming that conflict and that like reality of there's kind of more than two choices, but like there are certainly two very strong pulls and influences in our spiritual lives. Um, and so, yeah, this just, I guess, hearing it about Judas makes me think more about like, well, when have any of us, like, when have I fallen prey to the devil? When has the devil been active in my heart? I remember my dean in seminary, gosh, so wise, Kathy George, what a gem. She preached a sermon once about how the devil is often very active in us, like at the same time as God, or like at the kind of after mountaintop moment. She preached it about Jesus' temptation in the wilderness. And this, like, he's just been baptized. He has this, like, high point, like, this is my son, the beloved. Ah, right? And then it's like devil, like, right there. And she talked about this kind of, like, God and the devil are active often at the same time. And it is why we will sometimes have these kind of incredible senses of calling, followed by these, like, massive bouts of self-doubt, right? Like, I think I'm supposed to do this. And then, like, no, I couldn't possibly. I'm not the one for that. We see it in Isaiah, right? Like, we see it all over scripture, these kinds of, like, maybe I should be doing this. Oh, no, not me. I'm not worthy. And I think all of that stuff um, I don't think that just comes from self. I think, and we call it self-doubt, whatever. But, like, I think some of it is from a devil, from an evil kind of spiritual realm that seeks to steal the light that we are, that seeks to steal what God places in our hearts, seeks to steal God's promises from us. So I guess I'm feeling more the invitation, less to think about Judas particularly, and more to think about, like, what might Judas and his story be telling us about ourselves, and how we engage or don't engage with the reality of evil. What do we call it? What do we call it when something comes into our heads that we're pretty sure is not from us, or might be kind of from us, but like is also a bad idea, like bad, like in an evil kind of a way, either in harming ourselves or in harming others. And I just, yeah, I think the presence of that devil, of that evil, of that darkness, we don't have to look very far to recognize it in others, but we're very hesitant to recognize it in ourselves.
For me, I notice it in my woundedness. That's when the devil, with air quotes up, is quick to fill in the gaps, right, where I feel like not enough or insufficient or worried about. I think for Judas, about, because we know later that it was like a money exchange, right? And so like that to me is about security. Like that's about like also like maybe there was something going on in terms of like this sense of scarcity and like needing to make sure he and his family was okay, and not having a, it was a wild world then. And like, maybe the devil was the piece of saying, like, let's look out for myself, because this other crew can look at, yeah, I love them and we're a team, but like, it then comes like down to it, like, gotta like worry about my own family and my own well-being, which makes me, think about the election and like people choosing the economy over like other people's, common good, of like this idea of, yeah, someone else might suffer, but I that I'm doing what I got to do to get through. And some of that's projection, but it does make me think of those times that I've made decisions that later I regret, that it has come from that place of anxiety, worry, deficiency.
What messages from this gospel and from Jesus's teaching do you think we're missing or haven't paid enough attention to? I'm thinking about you'll know you are my disciples if we have love for one another, and how sometimes I feel like we might love one another when they're close to us, or we know them, or they're like us, or they're, in church, but how about the one another that we don't know, or the one another that's not nearby, or the ones we choose to ignore?
Yeah, I think also of the strength of Jesus's love. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. We talk and think about love so often as if it's fleeting, right? Like the reason for so many divorces is like, oh, well, I just fell out of love with them. And Jesus is teaching us, like, that's not how it works. Like, you're in and like you're in, right? Like, there's not this kind of fickle, like, well, today I feel it and like tomorrow we'll see, right? He's like, he loved them and he loved them. And like, that was the end of that. He didn't stop loving them. And even the next sentence there is about Judas, right? But I believe he loved Judas, even through the betrayal, even in the betrayal, even knowing the betrayal was coming. Like, I think Jesus's love just like didn't end.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a point at which he was like, and Judas, you're cut off. Like, that was a bad choice. I'm disappointed in you and we're out. And I think, yeah, the strength, not just the action of love, but the strength of love is something we could really work on. I could work on in myself and in our communities. Like, that it's not just when you feel it or when someone's giving you the warm fuzzies, but that like you decide to get in relationship, you love each other, and you just keep on putting one foot in front of the other on that love journey. But you're not getting off it. Like, there's not a diversion of that. There's not a different option. There's not like you can love each other or you can be in relationship in this other way that is also, different but equal. Jesus is pretty unequivocal. Like, the way of being in relationship is this way of love. There's not another option. There's not another like way of walking it together. There's certainly not another way of following me. Like, the way to follow is walking this love path. And yeah, the strength of that, the vigor of that is, I think, often overlooked. That we use love as a flimsy sort of a thing. I love that apple that I had for my lunch today. Like, and that Jesus isn't talking about that. I think he's talking about something that's much more like rigorous and holds up and is sort of love as a discipline almost.
Yeah, I think this section, I mean, these last two paragraphs, right, of the gospel around, very truly I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one that sent them. And then this idea of, love one another just as I loved you. You must love everyone, love one another. That's how they will know you are my disciples. I mean, it's so clear. And this is when we talk about how to preach prophetically, like, this is it, right? Like, this is what we can stand in our pulpits and quote Jesus and say this very, very clearly. No one is greater than anyone else. Those people who serve us, who are maybe from another country or whose skin color looks different, is not less than you because you're the one at the table and you are also to serve them. And we are also, right? Like our neighbors are not our neighbors across borders. And
Mm-hmm.
we are mandated to love and to care for one another. That's um I just love like the clarity in that. Then when people say, "Oh, you're bringing politics into the pulpit," like this is a very clear example where like this actually isn't politics. This is Jesus. Like this one makes it easy for us to kind of like talk about how we as disciples, how we as Christians can live our lives on a daily basis and what we're called to do. It's pretty clear there. And that's helpful to me, especially when people like to be proud of being a Christian. We can be proud of saying, as a Christian, it means that we show up in love. No matter what, we show up in love.
Mm.
I have a question for you both. Why do you think that he says, "Where I am going, you cannot come"? Like that part to me always throws me because like what if they wanted to like get crucified? Like why did he say like they couldn't go down with him, right? Like where he's going, they could not come.
I'm thinking about the thing about like it was his journey to go down to hell and like conquer it and then come out. And so I
Mm-hmm.
mean I think they could have been crucified with him, but he's the only one that's God that can overcome that and like
Uh-huh.
I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm doing all these hand motions as I'm talking, which is not very helpful for the podcast, but like, you know, it'd be like, you know, like they could come, but they're not going to come all the way. It'd be kind of like, you know, if someone's standing next to you and you're celebrating the Eucharist, they're not consecrating it. They're there with you, you know, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, based on your theology, maybe they are. I don't know, but you know what I mean. It's a little different, and I think only God can do that.
Different, we have different roles to play in it, maybe.
Yeah, can conquer the hell
Mm.
and forgive all our sins for all eternity and all of that. Like we could have gone with Jesus and walked next to him, but we're not the ones that are doing it. Then he is,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. That's what I think, but that's only my thought.
Yeah, that's what popped into my head too. And then I was like, is that scriptural that he went to hell and came back? Or is that just like some kind of weird kid's lesson that I learned?
Right.
I was like, that's a weird theology that I have on the inside. Like, I might have to do some work around that. But I also think it makes me wonder, like, if they would have gone and been crucified with him, and he probably was like, you don't need to. Like, you don't, like,
Hmm.
that's not your journey. You don't have to do that. Like,
Mm.
I bet some of them loved him so much that they would have been like, yeah, I'll go right next to you. Put me right, like we're in this
Mm.
together, right? We're in it till the end. That's what they've all been saying the whole time through. And rather than sort of understand the disciples as like the ultimate betrayers, although you can sort of look at it that way, right? There's the denial of Jesus and the like fear of being associated with him. But I just think he was kind of like, that's not your journey. Like we're all,
Mm.
and I think that's, I don't know, maybe more sort of broad view, like one of the difficult things about discerning in community is like, what are we doing together? And then what are we doing apart, right? Like
Mm.
what, because you come to community, but you come as your own individual person. And so, like, what is it that we're taking on? I mean, like for me and my churches, often it's like, what is it that we're taking on as a ministry of the church? And what is it that, like, it's fabulous that Sally does that and we're going to uplift her, but like, that's actually her ministry. That's not the ministry of all of us
Hmm.
here, right? I think,
Mm.
yeah. And so I wonder if Jesus was having a bit of a like, this is my, like, I'm this part of the body. Like, this is my particular kuleana. Like, that's my particular responsibility. And you all can't do that with me because it's what is mine to do. Um, and there's a different journey that we're all sort of on together.
Yeah, your journey is to stay here and love everyone as the way I've shown you.
That's a great question. I'm gonna have to look up too, like what the original word was for cannot. Like, is it you don't have to, or is it you cannot?
Oh,
Like, is it, you know what
love.
I mean? Like what is the word choice and what does it mean? I'll be curious. But I'm
Mhm.
also thinking, and I don't know why I thought about this particular thing, but like we often talked about Jesus as the ultimate sun dancer. So in our culture, we sun dance, and the certain people pierce themselves, and it's a sacrifice, but they do it so that people may have life, and Jesus sacrificed his whole life so that we all may have eternal life. But I also wonder, like, that's not a call that everybody's called to. Like, people, you come to support the sun dancer, but it's not necessarily a call that you are called to. And you might do something to be supportive. But I also thought about, like, I know, like, when we have suicides on our reservation, there's like this, sometimes they'll come as like this cascade. There'll be like one, and then there'll be like three others that come like right after it. And I'm wondering, I don't know if I would choose to preach with this passage, but I'm wondering if that's kind of how we would think about it, like where this person went. You're not meant to come there for that. You have a life that you're meant to lead, and you're meant to continue. I don't know if that would be helpful, and I'm gonna have to simmer on that. But there's so many of those funerals that we do that I'm really always struggle to, like, is it always the same reading that I want to choose? Or sometimes it's me that chooses it. I try and get the family to choose it. Sometimes they're just so shocked that they are not able to go there. But
I actually really, that's so beautiful, Shaniqua. That really resonates in terms of like where I'm going in terms of the suffering I'm about to partake in and the death I'm about to die. You can't you can't sustain that. Only I can sustain that because I'm going to come through on the other side, and I can and I'll be resurrected, but like you don't go there. Like I feel like that was also saying the more important thing is to stay here, love each other, wash each other's feet, have dinner together, observe the Passover the way that you've been instructed to do that, and not fall into the depths of the despair. And then we know Judas does go and dies from his own hand, after and falls susceptible to this sense of like self-loathing, which was Jesus's. I think maybe that was Jesus' warning, like you can't come to this place. Don't do that. You're gonna be sad and depressed, and yeah, that's interesting to think of it that way. I think of like martyrdom too, this idea of like people, and especially during this time of like social activism and social justice, at what time is like someone says, I'm gonna go to the front of the line and like go through me, and like what time is it our time to like really sacrifice ourselves and our bodies for the sake of the good, and at what time is it that like that's actually a selfish thing to do, and really what we should be doing is like sitting in the kitchen cutting up carrots to like feed people who are hungry, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think too, like death is always individual. Like you can die, I think, in the same room with someone else and take your last breath together, and still it is a journey that only you are going to be on. Like similar to birth. I don't know. I haven't been through it, but like my sense from being with others as they've crossed over is like there's a like you can accompany somebody so far, right? You can sit by their bedside, you can be with them, but you have a sense, I have had a sense that like they're starting to not really be present with you in this body and in this realm anymore, that they're starting to like leave. And and I always feel like, I don't know, Hawaiian tradition teaches like your ancestors all come to get you, so you're not doing it alone, but like necessarily, but you're the only one who can be on that journey at that time with your particular ancestors. Like it's just an individual kind of a thing. And then yeah, in the mourning process, I think how often after deaths, particularly after like a tragic death, other people feel like I just want to die, or I just want to give up, right? That like you don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to take a shower, you like just don't want to do anything. And I think, yeah, maybe part of Jesus saying you cannot come is that like mine is to die, yours is to live. And sometimes actually to be the one who's left to live feels harder. Like sometimes that feels less fair, right? Sometimes that feels like you really wish, or I've heard people say, I wish I could have gone instead of her, or I wish that I went too, or like, right, this kind of like, I miss this person so much that like don't know how to live without them. And the love that the disciples had for Jesus was as their friend, but also as their God. They lost their physical, tangible God that they could hold on to. Like that is that's a physical loss, it's an emotional loss, it's a spiritual loss. It's like the grief of that is so large. And I wonder how much Jesus was trying to tell them, like, yeah, this is mine to do, and yours is to stay. Like, yours is to stay and to love and to do all the teachings and to carry on this message and this way of being.
And to stay together in community.
Yeah, no, and I imagine it would have been just really devastating, like really hard for those disciples. It's hard for me in the Triduum, and I like know that Easter Sunday is coming, and I like didn't lose like a person that I could hug and wash his feet, like, and I'm still like pretty devastated on Good Friday. I have like a bit of a mini depressive episode every year, and I have to kind of come back out of it. Because, if you love Jesus, you like don't want it. It's for the good of all of humanity, and he's going to go to hell and defeat death and all the good stuff. But like also, I still have that little kid feeling of like holding on to a leg, being like, don't go. Like, don't leave.
What tips do you have for preaching this text or this day?
I think leaning into the imagery of the scripture itself. It's a really beautiful story, both the Passover, the story of the Passover meal and the story of Jesus's meal with his friends. I mean, I don't think it's I think you could overpreach this one, right? Like you don't have to try too hard with this one. It kind of speaks for itself. And there's also a lot of other things happening in this service that provides people opportunity to be preached to or to receive the message of God without words. That I think my suggestion would be not to preach too much, to really keep it kind of simple and tie it in ways that feel culturally relevant to where you are, to your local context. But it's a good one. It's a good service to preach. I always felt lucky when I would get, because I was always in a shared ministry context where we would, divide up someone's preaching at different times. And if I got Maundy Thursday, I'm like, yes, that was a good one for me. I like preaching this Thursday.
Yeah, I agree. I think in my congregation, Maundy Thursday is like, it's not a Sunday service. It's not everybody. You're getting some people who are coming from after work. Like, I'd almost encourage preachers I'm a manuscript preacher, but like not to do that this service, just to have a story or have something that you would like to share and trust that you have enough kind of extemporaneous speaking skills that you will remember how to make sentences and, do it without a piece of paper in front of you. There's so much intimacy being begged in the story and being explained, and to then go from that, like, yeah, vulnerability and of like washing feet in the service and hearing about Jesus's last meal, and to then like have a piece of paper that you're reading from in front of you doesn't feel quite right to me. So I think as much as you can, think of, a particularly poignant time that you took communion or some time that you shared a meal with someone else and, it felt suddenly Eucharistic or something like that, and just like tell a little story and then let the scriptures speak. Because like you said, Lydia, they do so beautifully already. Like they say what needs to be said. Sometimes we just need to go, yeah, that one. Like, kind of echo chamber it a little bit.
Yeah, in the order of the service, I just even look to remind myself is, the foot washing happens right after the sermon. So it's really the opportunity to invite people into that space and to kind of, I want to say lower their inhibitions, but that sounds like, but like not to be anxious, to be open, to embrace it or participate as much as they feel, ready, but to make the most out of what's about to come. And then even to receive the Eucharist. I mean, I think this is also a great opportunity for reframing this experience of the Eucharist, that we think maybe just take for granted every Sunday, but to reframe that as this idea of Jesus really breaking bread with his friends, around a table, just like Jesus did. He broke bread so it's a really meaningful opportunity.
I was thinking about, like, if you're preaching not like extemporaneously, that's you being vulnerable, and then you're asking the people to be vulnerable with their feet. And then, like, as you all were talking, I kept thinking about the Lakota word for love, or one of them, te chihila, which just means like I will endure, or I will sacrifice for you. And so I was thinking about, like, God asking us to stay behind, and that's the sacrifice that we're making to continue loving the other people. Or like, how will you love others? Like, how will you sacrifice for others? And that I was thinking about when we talk about martyrdom and all of that. But the other thing, I love how you reframed the Exodus for me, and thinking about, like, when you're so overwhelmed and someone's just like, eat, do this, like that, I think is where I'm going to go this year. Because I feel like so many of these like executive orders and different things are just flying at us. And I feel like sometimes I just want someone to be like, focus on this. This is what you need to respond to now. This is what, and I'm like, yes. You just want to be able to do it. Thank you so much for willing to be guests on the podcast. I love hearing your perspectives and your wisdom and your stories. And I know our listeners do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. What a gift.
If you want to learn more about Beloved Community, visit episcopalchurch.org/beloved-community. Thanks to our guests, Jazzy and Lydia. Thanks also to our production team, especially Michael and Asma. If our conversation inspired you today, please rate, review, and of course, share our podcast. Until next time, let your light shine.
Do justice. Love mercy. These words echo through our tradition not just as an action, but as a way of life. At Episcopal Service Corps, we invite young adults to explore what a life of justice and mercy looks like for them. Whether that's on a farm in Michigan, in a classroom in Philadelphia, or at a nonprofit in the Wyoming Rockies. Our 7 programs across the country offer service opportunities ranging from 6 months to 2 years in length, with stipends and other benefits provided. Live, learn, and worship in a community of young adult peers while serving at justice-seeking churches and nonprofits. If you're looking for a place to grow in your faith and live out your values, consider ESC. Learn more today at episcopalservicecorps.org or on social media at Episcopal Service Corps.